In the last video, I described how to start Tesla from scratch. Now, as vegans, that's not my biggest concern. I think Tesla is interesting, but I'm much more interested in protecting animal rights and protecting ecosystems and bring a whole new level of health and vitality to humanity. And I think that we want to focus on that. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about a project that should be done and that, given our access to financing, can be done at scale. So what we're really talking about is reaching scale, right? And before Tesla, there were plenty of electric cars. Even General Motors had an electric car in the 1990s called the EV1. They decided not to take it to scale. That's just a crisis for the world. But really, that's what we're talking about, is the vegan economy is growing. And now the question is, how do we get to scale and really help turn so many tragic situations around? Now, one of the most tragic situations is that somewhere over 400 million people on the planet have type 2 diabetes. And if you're a vegan, you watch vegan YouTubes, you'll hear from people like Dr. McDougall or Dr. Ornish, Dr. Bernard, and all these people have expertise and clinical experience in reversing type 2 diabetes with diet and lifestyle. Why is it that people are not getting this information when they go see their doctor? And I think we all know, first of all, there's no money in it for the pharmaceutical companies, right? They get recurring revenue by selling insulin. That's a cash, recurring revenue stream. That's what the ideal of a business is. You get money every month. Who cares whether it does anyone any good or not, right? That's not healing at all. And the doctors are trained. I've talked to many doctors. They say, well, we're actually trained that people will not make lifestyle changes. So why should we waste our valuable office time trying to get them to do that? It's like, well, actually, maybe that's true. I don't think it's been tested very well by the regular medical establishment, but it has been tested well by these medical pioneers. And in some cases, with a fellow like Dr. McDougall, he's been refining the process for, I think, 50 years now. He's been on this track and developed the body of science behind it and all that. So why has that not reached scale? Why is it only a few lucky people who have heard that this huge, this epidemic disease that's just spreading wherever Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's are? That's where type 2 diabetes is spreading like an epidemic. Why haven't people heard about it? Because the pioneers that I just mentioned, they're doctors. And they're really pioneering doctors, and they've done what they thought they could from that framework. Now, for me, I'm not a doctor. I used to when I was in the environmental movement, I called myself a macroecologist. I'm not an ecologist either. The question is, how do we take what the scientists or these cutting-edge doctors have discovered and take it to scale? And that's a question for a CEO and a financial leader, or in our case, as Vegan Launch, a community of financial leaders, a community of citizen financiers. We get to decide what things have been demonstrated clearly enough and are now ready to be scaled. And why is this good for veganism too? So it's good for people and it's good for veganism. And of course, as we wind down the consumption of animals, that naturally reduces pressure on the environment. So let's take a case. As we're saying, people don't even know. Like, of these 400 million plus citizens of the world that have type 2 diabetes, probably most of them don't know. And Dr. Ornish has said that something like 80% of the American healthcare budget is just basically wasted on diseases that are caused by eating animals and lifestyle, and that can be reversed by stopping eating animals and improving your lifestyle. So that's why they call it lifestyle medicine. Now, it's not quite as easy as giving somebody a pill. And I have, I have friends I've discussed this with who are diabetic, and they say, "Look, I just want the pill. If healing my diabetes means I can't have barbecue anymore, I'm not going to do it." And you know what? That's their decision. But there's a good chunk of that 400 million that if they only knew, they would do it. In fact, I have a friend, a fellow cyclist. He's about 61 now, and he told me his story about how he's he's not a politically liberal person, just FYI. I still like him. I'm not either, exactly. I don't fit in the political spectrum at all. I guess that's a hot topic these days. Anyway, I'm neither conservative nor liberal. I'm a vegan. That's what I care about. That's what I vote on. What did he tell me? He said he had arthritis in his toes, and his doctor was scheduling him for an operation. And he started thinking, God, there's got to be some other solution. I don't want to go down this path of having people start cutting into my feet. And he found Dr. McDougall online. And that day he started following the McDougall diet. And within a couple of weeks, his arthritis ended. And he went back to the doctor. Of course, the doctor said, "Oh, that's so unusual." It's not unusual. They just aren't educated, right? So we have a whole medical system that needs transforming. How are we going to really do that? Well, we can compete, right? Tesla's competing with the old line auto industry. We need a whole new approach to health in the world that is not of the Western medical mind per se. All the research that demonstrates the viability of the vegan lifestyle as a healing modality was done by Western trained scientists and MDs. It's just that the industry itself doesn't want to do it. Just like GM didn't want to electrify their fleet, even though they knew they had the technology in the 90s. They did great. It was a choice. It was a business choice. So here we can make a business choice. Now let's look at how this would work. I currently live in a city called Columbus, Ohio. Ohio is a state kind of in the middle of the U.S. There's about 12 million people. The city I live in is about 2 million or 3 in the metropolitan area. Now what we need is a clinic. We need some kind of a clinic for vegan doctors to do plant-based lifestyle medicine and help people who want to reverse their chronic illnesses to the extent possible. And again, type 2 diabetes has a very high reversal rate, according to Dr. McDougall, and help people get off their medications and really live a much better life. Okay, so we have to build the clinic. That takes some capital. Getting doctors who are trained, there's literally thousands of doctors now who've been trained by these pioneers, but they're kind of stuck. Again, they're also doctors. They're not entrepreneurs and solving things in the financial world. I even worked with some MDs here in Columbus who wanted to start a clinic like this, and the whole notion, the way the way risk is managed in marketing and all this is like, I don't know how far, we kind of lost track of each other because they just really weren't ready to do what it takes to build an enterprise around their value set. But they would have been perfectly happy to quit their paid jobs and move to another paid job where they could practice the medicine the way they really wanted to. And so we have a good supply of doctors ready to staff up these kind of enterprises, but as business people and financiers, we've got to kind of boot it up for them so that they can then be hired as staff. We can't necessarily expect, in general, this now growing body of people who are aware of plant-based medicine to actually start, because it takes a different skill. It's not a doctoring skill. It is, again, business and finance. Okay, so now let's imagine, fast forward, we've got the clinic, and that costs money every day, so we're burning cash like any other startup. We're losing money. Where are the customers? That's marketing. Now, imagine how all the different ways that we might market to the whole 12 million people in Ohio to find the relative handful that we need to make this clinic operate financially in the black, as they call it, run at a profit. That marketing itself is a mass education. So it's a whole different channel to bring people along into the plant-based lifestyle. And from plant-based lifestyle, it's not that big of a step to have people understand that giving animals their rights is actually a very powerful thing to do for yourself and for the economy. The amount of wealth that will be created in the global economy, the more and more people bring on animal rights as a commitment, is going to be vast. It'll just be vast. And anyone that thinks it's an impoverishing approach, they just don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. That's why I called vegan launch. I didn't call it plant-based launch, because it's not that I'm greedy. There's more transformation potential in the notion of giving animals their rights than there is in just plant-based as a concept. Why? Well, go look at a company like Tyson Foods. Go look at their website. And the last time I looked, it was like this. If you go to the homepage, they say more people in the world are eating animals than ever. I'm paraphrasing. And they go, we're in the protein business. Animal protein is going up. Yay for us. We're making more money. Isn't that wonderful? Hooray for us. And then you click on another page and it says, there's this new thing. It's called plant-based protein. That's growing like a weed too. Guess who's in the plant? We're in the protein business. Plant-based, animal-based, we don't care. We're just in the protein business. So good on us too. We're making more money. Now, no one is talking about how their animal business is causing people to, get type 2 diabetes and other chronic illnesses and die and suffer, right? Because inside of just plant-based is good, right? They're not giving animals their rights. If they were an animal, if they had that, if they understood they would make more money, if Tyson could understand that the move to give animals their rights, they would make way more money than they're making by playing this game, we're just in the protein business. If they understood that, they would do it, and then they would make way more money. So maybe they'll listen to this video and they'll call me and they'll say, okay, Mark, let's go vegan. Let's just do it. Let's really focus on that. And the fact is, if we look around the world, there are quite a number, it's a growing trend of people who are in the animal dairy industry who just abandoned the whole thing. They didn't just add a plant-based line of milk. They realized what they're doing is wrong. They unwound, and they did this. Well, now how do we educate broadly? Well, that's just, these days, marketing is a very cost-efficient project. So the whole point is, movements create movements create markets, but marketing also can build a movement. And unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of good things to look at in history, but we do have examples just with different value sets. What I'm saying is exactly what McDonald's did. McDonald's taught, literally now, the westernized world how to eat in a whole new and unhealthy and environmentally devastating way. And what do? They built a McDonald's restaurant, and then they bathed the community in education called marketing, right? Who are the biggest educators on the planet? Corporations, not our schools. Our schools are, half the time the school curriculum is made by the corporations, at least in the US. So if we want to educate, we need to educate at scale, right? If we're going to solve large-scale problems, we need to educate at scale. And the only enterprises that can afford to educate at scale are commercial enterprises. But here, we've just mapped out a viable business model. If we look at these leaders, they all have their own clinics. Some of them have several clinics. So we're seeing the business model, the science model, it's all packaged up. What there is to do is replicate at scale. How do we do that? Title III financing, like I've been describing in each video. So this is just an example of one kind of enterprise that can provide mass education about the plant-based and vegan lifestyle, helping culture make preferential choices at a large scale, really starting that educational process that if you're watching this video, you probably got from, your annoying friend or some YouTube video that came up on your feed by accident, or some other kind of campaign. We're not able to share broadly enough. YouTube isn't a big enough platform, but business is. Business is a big enough educational platform. And as people change, right, the more marketing, just like McDonald's, the more marketing they did, the more people change their eating habits. Well, time for a new upgrade. So this is just one. If you have other business ideas that you'd like to see me talk about, like how to get it done, put them down in the comments below, and I'll do more videos. We'll go case by case. And in fact, even if you don't have an idea for a business, list a problem that you'd like to see solved, and then I'll lay out a business model for that. Because business design, now that we understand there's no shortage of capital, it's really about business design and getting people who want to just take responsibility for managing each of these initiatives. That's really all there is left to do now. We just have to get started and design the businesses of the future and fund them. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.